this lesson, we're going to be multiplying and dividing integers. So we're going to get some context for what we're doing and how the signs are going to work out. So let's consider a couple questions here. If you owed 6 people $3 each, how much money would you owe? Okay, you owe 3 to each person. You could take some time and write this out if you wanted to do this, but I think you're up to it. You're going to owe $18. Now, we might consider that a negative, and so we might say that you have negative $18. Okay, if owed money is negative, what equation could represent this situation? Well, we would say 6 people times negative 3 is negative 18. So in this case, this is negative because that's owed money. So we can generalize this to say that a negative number multiplied by a positive number will give us a negative product. Great. If 6 people each forgave you $3 that you owed them, your net worth would, let's think, would this be good for you or bad for you? They forgave a debt. That means they kind of forgot it. So your net worth would increase. You kind of owed this $18, so now how much are you going to increase your net worth by? Well, $18, of course. Okay, so the forgiving is kind of like taking something away. And if taking something away is negative and the debt is negative, what equation could represent this situation? So 6 things were taken away, and each takeaway took away $3. So this is negative because we're taking it away. And this is negative because it is a debt, money that's owed. So negative 6 times negative 3, well, was that good or bad? It was good. So that gives us a positive 18. So let's go ahead and practice this a little bit. We've got 1 negative, 1 positive here. So a negative times a positive, we would say, is going to give us a negative. We can kind of reconcile that sign based off our generalization in number 3. And then we just think about the numbers. 3 times 7, 21. In this one, we've got a negative times a negative. Well, it's kind of like 2 wrongs in this case do make a right. So our answer is going to be positive, and it's going to be positive 96. In number 8, we've got 15 and negative 4. We've got a positive and negative. I always think just take care of the signs first. Is the sign of your answer positive or negative? Negative. We've got 1 positive, 1 negative, so it's negative. 15 times 4, 60, so negative 60. In number 9, we've got 2 negatives. A negative times a negative, taking away something bad, that's good. So it's going to be positive and a positive 44. Here, had a double duplicate here, sorry about that, but you know the answer is negative 21. And in this example, positive times a negative, 1 positive, 1 negative, your answer is negative overall, 5 times 8, 40. Okay, so now let's consider the situation where we might have more than 2 numbers being multiplied. So if we're multiplying 3 numbers together, such as negative 2 times negative 3 times negative 4, what sign will our answer be? Okay, well, if we were to approach this, we would maybe think, let's do the order of operations, and let's take care of the first 2 numbers, and then we'll get the negative 4 after that. Remember, these parentheses are telling us to multiply these by each other. So if we took the negative 2 times the negative 3, you know from above a negative times a negative is a positive, so that's a positive 6. I'm going to throw it in parentheses here, and now I'm going to bring down the other number that we have not yet multiplied by. So now we've got a positive and a negative. Okay, and also above we learned a positive times a negative is going to be a negative, and so that's negative 24. So we have a negative. Our sign will be negative, and we might say the order of operations told us to go from left to right. And because of that, I'll say therefore, the first product is positive. Then we take that product and we multiply it by a negative to get a negative. Okay, make sense? All right, let's try it when we have 4 negative numbers. Okay, so we can really multiply in any order. We can go left to right if we want. I'm going to go ahead and do them kind of in pairs here. I'm going to take these 2, multiply those 2 together, positive 6. These 2, multiply them together, get positive 8. And now we've got 6 times 8 is 48. So we get a positive this time when we have 4. And we can say each pair of negatives give a positive product. And then the product of two positives, of course, is positive. Ugh. Okay, great. Let's continue to look at this and see if we can make some conclusions. So let's try to do this quickly. We're not looking for the answer. I'm just looking for the sign of our answer. So in number 14, negative 16, positive 8, negative 2. Will this number be positive or negative? So if you kind of think about, we could do these two first. A negative times a negative gives us a positive, and then a positive times is positive. It's positive. Okay, we could do these two. That's going to give us a positive. And then these two, that's going to give us a negative. And if we take a positive times a negative, we're going to get a we're going to get a negative, of course. Stop me when I do silly things like that. Okay, and then let's look at this one. We've got a negative times a positive. That's going to give us a negative. And then we've got to multiply by another positive. So our final answer is going to be negative. All right, down here, those two are going to give us a positive. Those two are going to give us a positive. But then we have a negative left over. Positive times positive is positive. And then times another negative gives us a negative. Great. All right, look at those two. Those are going to give us a positive. These two are going to give us a positive, but then we still have that negative there. So positive times positive is positive. Positive times a negative, negative. All right. These two multiply negative. These two multiply negative. The negative times a negative is going to give us a positive. In number 22, a negative times a negative is going to give me a positive. I might skip and do this negative times this negative, give us a positive. We've got a positive there in the middle. So all three positive multiplied give us a positive. Positive times a negative, negative. Positive times a negative, negative. And so negative times a negative gives us a positive. All right, this gives us positive. This gives us, remember, I'm mean and evil, and so I'm trying to trick you here. That gives you 0. So overall, you've got 0, which is neither positive or negative. So watch out for that. Okay, so can we make a rule for determining the sign of the product of any number of integers? Pause, think. If you want to pause the video to figure this out, you can. But the sign of the product of integers will be positive if there are an even number of negative signs. So you can kind of go back and double check that if you didn't come to that conclusion already. So in this one, there was 2 negatives in 14, and we got a positive. In 17, there were 1, 2, 3 negatives. So that was not even. Here, not even number of negatives. Here, there's 5. That's not even. Here, there was 1, 2, 3. Not even. Here, though, there were 2 negatives. That's an even number of negatives, so it's a positive. In number 22, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's an even number of negatives, so that's positive. Here, 1, 2. So that works out. An even number of negatives gives us a positive. Great. And the sign of the product of integers will be negative then, of course, if there are an odd number of negative signs. And so, of course, you can go back and look at the ones that we didn't stop on, like number 17, there's 3 negatives. 3 is odd, so the answer is negative. 18, 1 negative, so it's negative. 19, 5 negatives. That's odd, so the answer is negative. So really, you're counting evens and odds. So can we use this to help us figure out some problems with some exponents? So negative 1 to the 17th power. So what does that mean? That means, and I'm not going to write them all out, negative 1 times negative 1 17 times. So thinking, what we just did in number 25, how does this apply? Well, how many numbers are we multiplying? 17. How many negative signs will we find? 17. Is 17 even or odd? Odd, of course. So the answer to this will actually be a negative, of course, and then we just need to think about 1 times 1 times 1 17 times. Well, that's still 1. So negative 1. Negative 1 to the 928th power. Whoa, we'd have 928 negative 1s multiplied by each other, but we can figure out the sign real quickly. The sign will be, because there's an even exponent, there's going to be an even number of negative signs, so it's going to be positive, and since all the numbers are 1, 1 times 1 times 1 times 1, 928 times is positive 1. Negative 1 to the 12,345th power, well, that's odd. Since it's odd, the sign's negative, and it's just a bunch of ones, so we have negative 1. Okay, we just spent all that time talking about multiplication, and we're going to spend just a second talking about division because the same rules we applied to multiplying integers also applies to dividing integers. We really can't focus on dividing more than two integers because that gets into like complex fractions, and really you just end up flipping one, and then we are doing some multiplication. So don't really worry about that. We won't really see examples like that outside of order of operations. Okay, so if we've got negative 25 divided by positive 5, let's think about the sign first. One of these numbers is negative, the other is positive, so we've got an odd number, so that's going to give us a negative answer. 25 over 5 is 5. Here we've got an even number of negatives, so our answer is going to be positive, and 56 divided by 7 gives us 8. Here we've got a positive divided by a negative. We've got one negative sign, so our answer is negative, and 81 divided by 3 is 27, so it's going to be negative 27. Negative 132 divided by negative 11, so a negative and a negative, two negatives. That means our answer is going to be positive, positive 12. Negative 51 divided by positive 17, that's one negative sign, that's odd, so the answer is negative, and 51 divided by 17 is 3, so negative 3. Finally, 68 divided by negative 2, we've got one negative sign, our answer is negative, and we divide that and we get 34, so negative 34. All right, armed with that knowledge, you should be good to tackle the next couple of pages.